Howdy folks, Jeremy KF7IJZ here with a quick shaky cam video of an overview of the brand new Hytera AR482G. This is the orange Hytera radio that you see on the right. In the middle, I have my trusty PD682, which I acquired from Gigaparts last year at Hamvention. And then on the far left, I have the Hytera PD362. And I want to quickly go over some of the similarities and differences of the AR482 with the other commercial radios. The first difference that we have is that the AR482 is a radio designed specifically for amateur radio use. Therefore, it's locked down to 420 to 450 megahertz transmit, though it does have a little bit of an extended receive, whereas the two radios on the right are commercial radios and come with their native frequency ranges out of the box. The reason I have all three radios is that the AR482 does share similarities with the other two. So the first thing that I just want to give you an idea about is the size. We'll take the 362 away, and we're going to bring these two radios side by side. I apologize, it's kind of hard to get them fully in the frame. But I mean, as you can see, the radio bodies, the overall faces are kind of similar. If we look at thicknesses, the AR482 does seem a little bit thicker. The backs of these radios look nearly identical, and there's a good reason for that, and we'll cover that here in a second. The next thing is I want to point out the antennas. The PD682 has this stubby antenna on the bottom, whereas the AR482G has a little bit longer antenna. Now, one thing to point out, first of all, is the type of antenna that's used. So on the antenna, we have SMA female, and you have SMA male in the radio itself. The other thing I want to point out is, and this is actually surprising, because if you pick these two radios up, you would think that this 682 is the heavier of the two radios, but as you see, I have a scale here, and much to my surprise, we'll start with the 682. Comes in at 11.3 ounces with the 1500 milliamp battery. 1500 milliamp hour. And the 482 here, which has the 2000 milliamp hour battery installed in it, which is the battery that comes with the radio, weighs in at 11.5 ounces. Again, this was kind of a big surprise to me because the PD682 definitely feels heavier. Another thing to point out is that this radio, this is metal. There's no overmolding on the main outside band of the radio itself, whereas this radio is entirely overmolded. A couple of other things to point out is here on the 682 on the left, you will see a channelized selector, whereas on the 482, this continuously turns. So nice, solid feeling clicks. Every bit as firm as the clicks on here, but this is continuously rotating. On the top of the radio, you have a programmable button. On the side of the 482, you have two more programmable buttons, and all of these buttons can be programmed for a short press function and a long press function, and you can even customize in the CPS how long you have to hold it. 682 just has the one function button. Unfortunately, the antennas are not interchangeable. This has SMA male on the antenna, whereas this has, as I showed, SMA female. Now, one of the things that was kind of a surprise to me is that these two radios actually share the exact same battery. If you look, you can tell, but I can promise you from testing that I have swapped batteries between the radios, and they do function. Now, I will show you the difference in the batteries here in a second, but also here you can see, as I mentioned, it is overmolded. You have your weather sealing around the battery contacts, a pressure hole, and then a couple of tamper evident, I'm assuming there are screws under there. Without the battery, just out of curiosity, 7.8 ounces. So if you want something that is a lighter weight, you can get these Hytera battery packs. I think Gigaparts may still sell them, but there are plenty of commercial vendors out there. Just to show you similar construction on the inside with the weatherproofing and the pressure hole. Obviously, this looks like a larger metal case. The battery on your left is from the 682. The battery on my right is from the 482. They are identical. I can take the 2000 milliamp hour battery, plug it into the 682, and voila, you get a heavier radio. Now, if we weigh it, it comes in at 12.2 ounces. So for the same battery, the 682 is a heavier radio. If you put the 1500 milliamp hour battery on the 682, that helps slim it up quite a bit. And we throw that on there. The radio comes in at 10.6 ounces. So fairly lightweight and definitely, like I said, overall rugged. On the external parts, the keypads are pretty much identical as far as what keys are available. The up-down selectors, the menu buttons, the call and disconnect buttons. One of the big differences, and I didn't think to take this off, this accessory connector has, I don't know, a bunch of pins on it. And at first I thought these were the same, but as it turns out, the accessory connector for this guy has a 2.5 millimeter jack, a 3.5 millimeter jack, and then a screw terminal. I have seen handy mics and whatnot available on eBay. Hytera does make one, but I haven't found anybody who can get them easily online. But I assume that since HRO is the exclusive dealer of the AR482G, I assume they're going to start carrying accessories. Now, one of the other things to point out is you can see the screens are different. This uses a full color LCD. Sorry about the fingerprints. This uses an OLED display, which I actually quite a bit like. Now, I'm going to start these radios up at the same time so you get a rough idea of startup time. And so the 682 did boot up faster, and clearly I was on a channel that wasn't programmed. So it did start up faster. When the backlight goes off, the display still shows. It's just the backlight that's been turned off. On the 482 with the OLED, you'll see that there's nothing there. A quick press of the button and you get your information. This turns off because OLEDs can suffer from burn-in, and I believe they do this to keep that from happening. Plus, it reduces power draw on the radio. You can also customize how long that stays up. Overall, similar information as far as showing you DM mode, your signal strength indicator in the top, your power level, battery level. The 42 actually has a clock available to it, and you can see your channel name, your zone, and then it doesn't say menu down here like it does on the 682. Oh, that was George. But if I press this button, I get into the menu. Now you'll notice there's George. So if this may actually be a good opportunity to test the audio, but I want to point out that the menus are different on these. That's not the only difference. This radio has more sophistication. I'm going to shut the 682 off. If we get somebody talking here, and by the way, I've disabled all of the beeps on this guy when it turns on and off and whatnot. I was hoping we could get them to come back so we could... There we go. There's Charles.
I'm doing pretty good. How are you tonight? NKO, KJ6VU.
I just realized I should be putting that up here to the real mic.
Oh, after getting up at 3:30 in the morning to fly down to Alabama, but I arrived safely, no bad weather or anything like that. So, can't complain. Did I ask you what you do? Because I know you're traveling around a lot.
So I'm gonna turn the radio to a different channel, so we're not hearing that. One of the things to point out, you'll hear the audio levels were different, and that's a function of the radio that they're using to talk into to the network on. So I'll do one quick thing to show you. So this is the 362. The reason that I brought this up here is that these two radios share a very similar menu structure, and they also share a couple of capabilities that are similar. This radio boots up fairly quickly. Let me shut that off. This battery is almost dead. I actually don't even know if... there we go. That was the Hamvention bayonet frequency or channel. So if I go in here, same deal. Menu. Look familiar? Ah, sorry. So contact message. We have contact attachment, which I'll talk about here in a second. Scan. Zone. Programming. Settings. Contact. On the 362, we have contact, message, call logs, scan, zone, settings. So again, they look incredibly similar. This does have messaging capability, but maybe I have that turned off at the moment. Oh no, it may be because I went to an analog channel that's not showing up. I don't think I have any digital channels in here that aren't analog, which actually that'll be fine. We'll use that as an example. So yeah, clearly the menu structures are similar. So these radios have to share something in common. Plus the CPSs for these are virtually identical. What's interesting is I have the CPS for the 362 installed on my machine. And when I got home, I tried to install the CPS for the Hytera, and it wouldn't let me. It would say that there was already a version installed, please uninstall it. And so I thought, well, I'll take the chance to see if the 482 CPS works with the 362 or vice versa, and they are not compatible. So if you have CPS for 362 and you get a 482, you can't have them installed on the same computer. I have provided that feedback to the folks at Hytera, so we'll see if they do anything with that. Obviously with this guy, you have very limited buttons, so there's not really going to be any front panel programming or anything. I'll shut him off because I do want to take a moment and walk you through some of these options. I might have to, we'll just turn the volume down on that. So if I go into the menu, we have contact, and this is basically your select and this is your back. So I have contacts, receive group list, new contact, manual dial. So one thing I want to point out on the amateur version of this is, so if I go into contacts, I've added George, just as an example, and there's my global contact. Nothing surprising. But one thing that I can do with the 482 that I can't do with the 682 or the other commercial Hytera radios is you have more capability for programming in contacts. Namely, if I go to new contact, we have ID, alias, type, and save. The ID, of course, being the actual global ID, the alias being the name you wish to display. The type is going to be global or private, and then save. Just for comparison, I'll bring the 682 back. I'll go into contact. I'll go into new contact. And you'll notice all I have is input ID, input alias, and save. And even if I go into input ID and hit the shift key, it doesn't change the type of contact it is. So this is an area where the 482 comes out ahead. Oops. So the I won't go into it because you can type a number in for an ID, aliases, whatever. But what's cool, you go into type and you can select private or group. So this allows you to add talk groups from the keypad, which is nice. Another feature that it has that is not on the commercial radio is for manual dial. I can enter a private ID, or if I press group ID, let's say I wanted to do that talk group. So I could. I assume if I hit push to talk, it would do it. But this will actually let you switch between private and group. So that's some of the nice features. The receive group list allows you to select. I only have one in here right now. This radio is only programmed for my hotspot. So if I go back, So next is message. This is all new message, quick text, inbox. This is all pretty similar to what's going on with the commercial 682. So nothing particularly fancy there. Go back. Call logs, same thing. Incoming, outgoing, missed. This would show you private calls that you would have received. Incoming list. Of course, I've never received a private call, so nothing to show there. Next, going over to attachments. So one feature about this radio, and these things are available as an option on the 682 through the accessory port, but this radio comes with, you see GNSS, which is GPS. I can turn it on or off. I can set what mode it's in, which in this case is GPS and GLONASS. Presumably there would be a way to set just one or the other. If it were turned on, I could view position. What's that say? That says contact. So I've got one contact in the attachment right now. I actually don't know why that's in there. Oh, maybe I can send my position to them. I'm just guessing on that though. Backtrack would allow, like it will keep track of a track and allow you to go backwards if, or to follow it out if you wanted to. Of course, because, or maybe you can set waypoints. Again, I haven't seen a manual that explains this, so I'm kind of making that up as I go along. But the point is the GPS is in there. Honestly, all I've used it for at this point is setting the clock. I know that's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, it's nice. So if we go back, the next thing that we have is compass. So it says do a figure 8 calibration. And I don't know if the compass will work without the GPS enabled. Yeah, I didn't do it enough. But the point is, it does have a compass that apparently is actually magnetic and not just a GPS compass. And then finally, under attachment, which think of as accessory, we have Bluetooth. So I can connect a Bluetooth or turn Bluetooth on and off. I can look for devices. I don't know what indoor location does. If I turn Bluetooth on, set successfully, we go back. I can make it so the radio is always visible. And now that this is turned on, I could pair it. But if we go back, as I understand it right now, the two devices that this will support is an audio device, which again, I don't have one handy, but it would also support a push-to-talk Bluetooth device, which Hytera actually has a little push-to-talk ring, which is pretty cool, which again, HRO may stock in the future. The fact they put these in here, hopefully they aren't going to leave us high and dry on accessories. I'm going to turn Bluetooth off to save battery. Okay. Next, going down the list from attachment, we have scan. Scan does what you expect it to do. It'll go through scan list or run the current receive list. Zone, we all know what zones are. No big deal there. One thing to point out, though, I can't create a new zone from here, nor can I guess I can change the zone, but I can't do anything to manipulate zones. So, or at least not from that menu. If we get into programming, this is another area where it starts to get interesting. So my options are radio and channel. So I can set a text for my radio. This is all I can do, though. There is no other option that I'm aware of in here. I can hit shift to go through the different character sets. So lowercase letters, uppercase letters, and then numbers. So that's the only option under radio for here. By comparison, and I do have front panel programming enabled on this radio. If I go into settings, I have radio set. I can set the power level, language, backlight, day or night mode, the brightness, keypad lock, whether or not the LED or tone are turned on, set a password, configure the optional keys, set up Vox, mic and speaker levels, date and time, turn on covert mode, and what's battery do? Yep, I'm using a legitimate battery. So you can see that there's quite more options on that. Oh, I apologize. That was settings. Let me go under to programming. So on here, so yeah, ignore that. I was completely wrong. All you can set is the radio alias as well. Now, if I go into channel though, this is where things get pretty exciting. So I have the ability on the PD682 to do frequency, which if I go in there, it'll let me, receive receive and transmit. If I go back, apologize, I have the thing set to cut off pretty quick. I can do channel, I can set the slot, the color code, the transmit contact name, or select a receive group list. But that's it. And I can only edit an existing channel. I can't actually create a new channel from the radio. So I always, in my code plug for this radio, have a blank analog or a default analog and a default digital. So if I'm out in the field and I need to change something, I have channels programmed in that I can do that with. What's super cool on the 482 here, oops, I don't want to delete. So here, let me go back. So if I go into programming, I can set the channel alias, transmit frequency, receive frequency, color code, time slot, transmit contact name, receive group list, and then save. I mean, that's pretty nice. I feel like I'm missing something though. I guess technically I could. Well, actually, I'm kind of embarrassed now because when I first programmed this radio, I was able to just add a brand new channel. Like I was able to set everything up without having to go in. So I'm in the radio settings menu now. I can set the power level, the keypad lock, the real-time clock. I think that's time zone offset. The backlight level, the brightness, whether backlight is on or off, which that's actually kind of silly. Okay, I can just leave it turned on as opposed to be timed. What button would lock the radio, and etc. I am feeling actually pretty bad because I could have sworn that, let me see, I think this is programmed to, let me get off here. There we go. So I apologize. It's not in the menu. By default, the gray button at top, if I press that, just one short press, I have manual programming and I have the option to do a digital channel or an analog channel. So let's say I wanted to put in a new analog channel. I can change the alias, the frequency, the PL stuff, etc., and then I can save. And let me just show you real quick. So you'll notice in this radio, let me change zones because technically I've only done stuff in zone 1. Oops, apologize. Zone 1. So in here you'll see I have channel A1, channel A2, channel A3, bayonet. And what's cool is I'm just turning the continuously rotating thing, and no more going over to my PD 362 or 682, excuse me. Oh no, it's angry. It's unprogrammed. Oh, angry. So I think it's nice that they address that. So if I go back in here though, I'll press that button. I'm going to manually program an analog channel. We're going to set the alias to, I'm just going to call it 12, or I guess A1A, just to show that we did that. And I'm just going to go down to save. And see, it'll let me either overwrite or let me create new. saying create channel. Yes, configuration success. So now, Baynet, A1A, A1, A2, A3. So I can create on the fly new channels on the radio, which is fantastic. Like I said, at Dayton, I had this mostly front panel programmed, with one exception. The one thing that you absolutely cannot do from the front panel, at least I've not found a way, maybe there's an option in the CPS to enable, because I should have called out earlier, the enabling Bluetooth and the GPS are features that I had to tick on in the CPS. But, you know, if I go back into... I don't even think I'm going to be able to see it. If I go into here, I go into radio set. Well, okay, that's all radio stuff. Device info. Well, interesting. There's my radio ID. That's my DMR ID. But if I start clicking on stuff, I can't edit it. So I had this all set up and forgotten, in my haste, forgot about that. So everybody local, in talk around at Hamvention could hear me, but I wasn't making it onto the hotspot, and it's because I didn't have my DMR ID. So you're not able to front panel program, or at least I've not found a way, your DMR ID, which is also feedback that I gave to the folks at Hytera. This radio is selling currently for $320. So let's, just to be, open. The 682 here, I think I paid, might have been around 300 or less than 300 for when Gigaparts was selling these at really good amateur prices, which it appears that they're not going to anymore. Hytera told me at Hamvention that HRO was the vendor now. And if you look, I mean, they haven't gotten new Hytera stock in a while. I talked to them previously. Gigaparts said, oh, we're just having problems getting the radios, but yeah, we're still carrying them. Right now, most of the stuff they have on their site is, like used or open box. One of the things I'll point out is this extended 2000 milliamp hour battery, I think, is like $100 battery. So from a value perspective, the fact that they know hams like to talk more, and they give you the high cap battery out of the box, I think was a nice touch. If I compare the two radios, I think overall, I mean, this one certainly has more features. Do hams need them? Probably not. This radio also does not have Bluetooth or GPS built into it. Again, those are options that I would have to add. I love the OLED display on this as far as readability indoors and out, low power, etc. I think it's a much nicer display than this kind of washed out color display, which is similar to the one on the Hytera radios. The biggest, I guess, gamble that we as amateurs can take is, will Hytera follow through? I mean, they were supposed to release AR versions of all of these radios previously. The 482 is in their line. It's a lower model radio. Actually, that reminds me, I should have covered this at the very beginning. Another thing that these two radios here, the 362 and the AR482, have in common, there's only 256 channels that you can program in. In this radio, that's, I think, split in half, 128 analog, 128 digital. And you can only program in 64 contacts. And of course, for those of us who have, $100 and $150 Chinese radios where I've loaded all, 100,000, I don't know what the number is, but every DMR ID into the radio, and, people like our friend K6RCT who build code plugs to cover, the western half of the United States. I mean, it's lacking, right? The $170 Anytone is pretty much infinite memory. The guys at Hytera told me that one of the ways that they can expand this radio is by uninstalling the Chinese character set from it, which is ironic because that's actually, if you remember our interview with Travis Goodspeed, that's one of the things that they did to get more space in order to store the contact database, was remove the Chinese character set from the firmware. They said overall that the Hytera engineers, though, are committed and they like customer feedback. So I don't know. I've gotten asked, is this radio worth buying? and I'm personally going to say is for me, the reason that I bought it is I do believe that inside that it is overall, and this is what they told us in our interview, this is a commercial quality radio. I mean, this has the soul of a Part 90 radio in it. From a spectral purity perspective, a time slot, what's the word? Being true to time slot timing, etc., is I believe this is absolutely a better quality radio. Should this be your first DMR radio? I mean, honestly, I would even say it depends on that. If you know for sure that you're going to get into DMR and enjoy it, I think it's a fine radio, especially if you're comfortable with putting the legwork in for the CPS stuff that you have to do today in order to get it up and running. I mean, that's for the year. I mean, that's all I've been able to do with this is the CPS. And I'll tell you this, you don't find Hytera code plugs for amateur stuff. So it took a while to program this guy, the 682. For the hotspot, I mean, only 64 contacts today. Some people might want more talk groups than that. I think that there is a lot of opportunity to continue adding ham-friendly features to this, the AR482G. I don't think it's a slam dunk yet. I think it's a commercial quality radio that is going to definitely be tougher than a TYT. Yeah, this plastic it feels, which is obviously a very objective way of determining it, but that's a joke. It feels a lot sturdier and stronger grade than the plastic of the Hytera. In fact, Kenneth's Hytera, shortly after he made it home, the belt clip that screwed into the battery, like the plastic failed on the belt clip. And he's somebody who's used to working with actual like Motorola commercial radios where it goes on and off the belt all the time. And so, you grab it and you're pulling but it failed on him. I don't feel like this is going to fail. I mean, this radio is made to be commercial. Now, do I believe this radio is as tough as my 682 or even a 782? Probably not. But the days of getting, $350 782s are probably over, whereas this guy is about $300. So I think it's a quality radio. I think if you want to get into easy to acquire commercial grade amateur radio gear, yeah, I think it's a good buy. I do not at all regret buying this radio. I like it very much. Like I said, it especially with the narrower battery, it's lighter than this guy. 4 watt, 1 watt, just like the PD682. This guy is supposed to be like 3 watts, 1 watt. Notice that that antenna's, you're stuck with it. But in case you didn't know, this is my favorite feature about this radio. Is you charge that with just regular old USB mini, which makes it a fantastic radio. But again, this guy's only got 256 channels, 64 contacts. If we see a couple of firmware updates happen and we see that we are getting some of the things we've been promised with this, I personally think that if somebody wants quality, I think it'll be a no-brainer. Granted, a lot of amateur HTs are dual band in this price range, and you can get D-Star, Fusion, and whatnot. This is a mono band, and I don't think you will ever see Hytera release a dual band radio, because that's just not, building these commercial grade RF sections. I mean, you just have compromises when you're doing dual band in a single module. I love how bright that is. So to me, yes, it is a recommended buy if you want a commercial quality radio and want to dip your toe in that without buying Motorola. Because even if you get a good price on the radio, then there's hoops to jump through to get the programming software. The programming software is pretty featureful on this. There are several things about this radio that I didn't deep dive into because I just don't know enough. For instance, if you're into DMR roaming, I know for a fact my 682 supports it. I know that the options are in the CPS for the Hytera, but I don't know that they're unlocked yet. And supposedly the guys from the Hytera from Hytera at the HRO booth said that would be coming as well. Another thing out of the box, this is quote unquote wideband unlocked for the 25 kilohertz channel spacing and the 5 megahertz of deviation. Sorry, not megahertz, 5 kilohertz of deviation versus 2.5, which is the narrowbanding requirement. This guy had to be unlocked when I bought it. which actually is a little bit of a challenge. There are third parties that'll do it, but when I got my 362, it is not unlocked. I finally did find a radio shop in the U.S. that would do it, but they want $95 for the privilege. And I don't know that I'm going to use this for analog enough to really make it worth it. This has it out of the box. Sorry, the 42 has that out of the box. So yeah, like I said, overall, I'm very pleased with the radio. It is my, it's probably tied with this. But what I will say is, since I've gotten this, I haven't touched my Anytone, even though the Anytone has my full contact database, etc. in it. I mean, those features are awesome, though. And that's why I still say that if you want to dip your toe in the DMR waters, the Hytera MD380, I think, is still your best bet, especially if you're going to be working with a hotspot. Because once you put the Travis Goodspeed hacked firmware on it, you get a ton of capability that the radio doesn't give you out of the box. And having the contact database in the radio is phenomenal. It's like caller ID for ham radio. It's fantastic. But yeah, overall, like I said, this is a buy if you want a commercial quality radio. And I very much look forward to see what Hytera does. They in theory, according to our conversations, are looking at releasing a mobile as well, based on the I think it's currently the PD622. I gave feedback about that to Hytera as well, as far as some things that I think are that have to be there at launch. Because right now, really, the only other mobile options are commercial radios or the Hytera, is it the MD9600, I believe. So anyway, thanks for watching. This video went about 20 minutes longer than I had expected, but I hadn't really seen many tours of this radio on the interwebs, so I wanted to make sure to get something out there. 73s, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. If you want to know more about the Ham Radio Workbench, you can find us at www.hamradioworkbench.com or follow us on Twitter at hamworkbench. Thank you very much.